Welcome back to the Chattable podcast, where we learn real English in real life and have fun and be proud. Imagine standing on the edge of a cliff and just tossing your smartphone straight into the ocean.
Oh man, that sounds kind of amazing, honestly.
Right, like no emails, no text messages, no notifications at all, just absolute unbroken silence.
I think we all crave that kind of escape sometimes.
We really do. But the phrase we use to describe that modern digital fantasy actually comes from, well, heavy 19th century municipal infrastructure. So today, my goal for you in this episode is to examine 3 really vivid English phrases.
And this is so important because, true fluency isn't just memorizing dictionary definitions.
Exactly. You need to know exactly when to use these phrases, where they physically come from, and crucially, when not to use them, so you can avoid deeply awkward or even offensive situations.
Right, and the connecting thread here, what makes all 3 of the phrases we're exploring today so fascinating, is their sheer physicality.
Yeah, they're all very tangible.
Right.
Right.
Very tangible. Every single one of them started out as a literal description of a real-world object or a mechanical action. But as society evolved, those physical descriptions transformed into these powerful, abstract, modern metaphors.
Metaphors that basically govern how we communicate every single day. So let's start with that universal desire to just, escape the noise.
Let's do it.
I was actually talking to a friend the other day who was totally burned out from work, and they sighed and said, "For my vacation, I just want to go somewhere remote and get disconnected from technology, completely off the grid."
Completely off the grid. It's such a common phrase now.
It really is. We hear it all the time. But let's look at the literal mechanics of it, because it didn't start with smartphones.
Not at all. To truly grasp the weight of being off the grid, we have to look at what the grid actually is. Originally, this phrase had absolutely nothing to do with cell phones or the internet.
Wait, really? Nothing to do with communications?
Nope. The grid referred exclusively to the massive physical network of municipal utilities.
Oh, like power and water.
Exactly. We are talking about millions of miles of heavy electrical power lines, high-pressure water pipes, and underground gas lines. The physical things that connect individual homes to a central city supply.
It's literally a massive web of civilization. It's the physical tether to society.
Precisely. So historically, living off the grid meant you were literally physically severing that tether.
You were cutting the cord.
You were disconnected from those municipal utilities. It meant you had to go out and, build a cabin in the woods.
Wow.
It meant you had to drill deep into the earth for your own well water, chop your own wood for heat, and eventually rely on things like solar panels. It was entirely about independent physical survival outside the safety net of society.
But here is what I find so fascinating about how this phrase has evolved for you and me today. Most people who say they want to go off the grid aren't actually packing up a saw to go build a log cabin.
No, definitely not.
They're like booking a nice hotel in another country. It's amazing how our underlying definition of survival has shifted.
It really has.
Because going off the grid used to be entirely about physical survival without city power. But now, it's almost entirely about mental survival.
That is a brilliant distinction. The phrase has completely transitioned into a digital metaphor. Today, survival means escaping the algorithm.
Escaping the algorithm, yeah.
Going off the grid simply means turning off your phone, logging out of all your social media accounts, and becoming completely, intentionally unreachable to the outside world.
But let me push back on that for a second. If it's just about taking a break, what if someone actually moves to a cabin permanently? Does the modern phrase demand a return to society, or can you just vanish?
Well, that is where the context becomes so important. While you can literally live off the grid permanently, when we use it as a conversational metaphor, like when your friend says it about their vacation, it heavily implies a temporary reset.
Right, they're coming back to work eventually.
Exactly. If we look at the bigger picture of our modern culture, you see very high-profile people doing this specifically for their mental health and then returning. Think about the pop star Ed Sheeran.
Oh, that's right. He completely vanished for a while, didn't he?
He did. A few years ago, feeling incredibly overwhelmed by the sheer pressure and constant noise of global fame, he quite literally threw away his phone.
Just tossed it.
Just got rid of it. He went completely off the grid for an entire year. No social media, no public appearances, no emails. He just traveled the world in peace to reset his mind.
And then he came back.
Exactly. He came back and made more music.
He just opted out of the noise for a bit. But, if you are listening to this right now, we really have to talk about the strict boundaries of this phrase,
Yeah.
because there is a very specific situation where you must never use it.
This is absolutely vital. You must remember that saying someone went off the grid strongly implies a voluntary, temporary, and healthy break from technology.
Right. It's a positive thing.
Yes. And because of that lighthearted implication, it should never be used to describe a serious or tragic missing persons case.
Oh, wow, yeah. If someone disappears under suspicious or frightening circumstances, say, yeah, they went off the grid, sounds incredibly insensitive, doesn't it?
It sounds far too casual. It implies they were just taking a fun, relaxing vacation to clear their head, which is absolutely the wrong tone for a real emergency.
It minimizes the gravity of the whole situation.
Completely. So always reserve it for voluntary digital detoxes.
Keep it to vacations and mental health breaks, got it. Never use it for a tragedy. Now, usually the reason we want to escape the grid in the first place is that our daily life, our relationships, or our work situations have become incredibly messy or chaotic.
We just want to flee the mess.
Exactly. And that brings us perfectly to our next phrase, which is all about the nature of the mess itself. I was actually reading Andre Agassi's autobiography last night, and it struck me how he described his early life.
Oh, what did he say?
He wrote that his childhood was so screwed up, and that he actually hated tennis when he was young.
Screwed up. This is an incredibly common, highly descriptive slang phrase. And just like our first phrase, we have to look at the physical etymology to really understand its power.
So we're talking about a literal screw here.
Yes, think about a literal, physical metal screw that you would use in construction. A screw works because of its precisely engineered metal threads.
The little spirals that wrap around the metal.
Exactly. Now, if you take a heavy screwdriver and you twist that screw too hard, or you try to force it into the wood at a bad, crooked angle, the excessive torque strips the metal threads.
Oh, I hate when that happens.
Right. You violently grind away the grooves. You permanently ruin the physical structure of the screw, so it can no longer hold anything together.
I've done that so many times building furniture. You just hear that horrible grinding sound.
Yeah.
And you know the piece of metal is completely useless now.
Right. And linguistically, the phrase also relates to taking a perfectly flat, clean piece of paper and crumpling it into a twisted, tight, chaotic ball to throw in the trash.
So it's about ruining the shape of something.
Exactly. The core meaning here is twisting something out of its proper natural shape until it becomes completely dysfunctional or ruined.
But, why do you think we use mechanical metaphors for emotional failures? I mean, why not use an organic metaphor? Why don't we say a bad situation wilted or rotted?
That is a deeply insightful question.
Because to me, it seems like a mechanical metaphor implies that someone actively forced it to break.
You hit the nail on the head, no pun intended. We use mechanical metaphors because a screw is something human beings engineered. It requires intentional force to operate.
Right. It doesn't just happen on its own.
Exactly. When a situation is screwed up, it usually implies human error, bad judgment, or unnatural pressure. It didn't just passively rot like an apple. Somebody or something actively twisted it out of its natural, healthy shape.
That makes perfect sense. Like in the Andre Agassi example. His childhood wasn't literally a broken piece of metal, obviously, but the situation was warped out of its natural, healthy shape by the immense unnatural pressure placed on him to succeed at tennis.
Exactly. You use this informal phrase to describe a massive mistake you made, a deeply chaotic situation, or a highly dysfunctional history.
Can you think of another good example?
Sure, a great illustrative example of this in pop culture is the actor Robert Downey Jr.
Oh, yeah. He had a notoriously difficult early career.
He did, and he is very open and honest about his past. He readily admits that he made terrible personal choices that completely screwed up his early career long before he got sober and made his massive successful comeback as Iron Man.
So he was the one applying the bad torque, so to speak.
Yes, he actively twisted his own career trajectory out of shape through his actions. He applied the wrong kind of pressure.
So it's really about acknowledging that something didn't go the way it was naturally supposed to, often because of bad choices. Now, I have to admit, I use this phrase a lot when I make a mistake.
A lot of us do, yeah.
But just like off the grid, there are environments where this phrase absolutely does not belong, right?
Correct. This raises a critical question of social context for you as a listener. This phrase is highly informal. It carries a sense of slangy casualness.
So not for the office.
Definitely not. If you make a massive financial mistake at your corporate job, you do not walk into the boardroom, look at the CEO, and say, "I screwed up."
Oh man, that would definitely not go over well.
It is far too casual for a strict professional, legal, or academic setting. In those environments, you would say, I made an error in judgment, or there was a miscalculation.
But there is a much more serious boundary here too, right? It's not just about sounding too casual in a meeting.
Yes, and I must advise you very sternly on this point. It is highly offensive to ever use the phrase screwed up to describe a physical disability, a genetic condition, or a serious medical issue.
Because you are fundamentally describing something as ruined or dysfunctional.
Exactly. If you use it to describe a person's body or health, you are equating a human being to a piece of stripped, useless metal or a piece of crumpled trash.
Wow, when you put it that way, it's horrifying.
It is incredibly insulting and dehumanizing. You only ever use this phrase for situations, systems, or behavioral mistakes, never for biology.
That is such a crucial boundary to remember. Situations can be screwed up, people's bodies cannot. Okay, so let's set a scene. Let's say a situation is completely screwed up. Things have gone wrong, and it is rapidly devolving into a really heated argument about whose fault it is.
The tension is rising.
Right. How do you stop that forward momentum? How do you completely shut down that conversation? That brings us to our third and final phrase, which is honestly the ultimate conversation stopper.
Oh, I know where we're going with this.
Let's say a parent has had enough of arguing with a teenager. They might snap and say, for the rest of today, I don't want to hear a word about playing video games, period. End of story.
Now, this is a truly fascinating piece of language. It is a double-barreled phrase.
Double-barreled.
Yeah, it combines two distinctly different yet equally final concepts to completely annihilate any chance of debate. Let's break down the mechanics of what you are actually doing when you say this. Concept one is the word period.
Which is so strange when you think about it, because you are physically saying a typographical punctuation mark out loud.
Exactly. You are vocalizing the silent architecture of grammar. By saying the word period, you are verbally signaling to the listener that the grammatical thought is fully finished.
You're drawing a line in the sand.
Yes. You are telling them there are no commas coming, there are no conjunctions, no extra thoughts, no room for an and or a but. The sentence has hit a brick wall.
You are literally speaking the punctuation into existence to force a stop.
Yes, and then you follow it immediately with concept two, end of story. This brings in the powerful physical metaphor of a book being firmly and permanently closed.
Like slamming the book shut.
Exactly. If you think about the physical act of reading, when you reach the end of the story, there are no more pages left to turn. There's absolutely nothing left to narrate.
So when you mash these two concepts together, period and end of story, it creates this massive double reinforcement.
It does. It sends a crystal clear, undeniable message that the debate is absolutely over. It leaves no oxygen in the room for a counter-argument.
It's less like putting up a stop sign and more like pulling the emergency brake on a speeding train. It jolts everyone in the room, it's slightly aggressive, and the forward momentum of the conversation is instantly dead.
That's a great way to describe it.
When you use this phrase, you clearly aren't inviting a response. This isn't just a phrase, it's a display of absolute authority.
It absolutely is a display of power. You use this when you are setting an absolute unbreakable boundary. Usually, it comes from a position of hierarchical authority, like the example you gave of a parent setting a strict behavioral rule for a child.
But it's not always just a parent-child thing, right?
No, not at all. It can also be used effectively to express an undeniable fact or a critical safety boundary.
Can you give us an example of that?
Think of the famous, very intense chef, Gordon Ramsay.
Oh, I can definitely picture him saying this.
Right. Imagine he walks into a kitchen during a show and finds dangerous, cross-contaminated raw meat sitting on a shelf in a restaurant's fridge. He might look right at the owner and state, "You cannot serve this to customers, period. End of story."
Right. In that context, he isn't being a dictator just for the sake of it. He is establishing an absolute fact.
Exactly. It is not up for debate. It is an undeniable fact of biological safety. The discussion is over because the reality of the danger is absolute.
But because it is such a powerful emergency brake, using it in the wrong situation can really backfire on you socially, right?
Precisely. You have to navigate the social dangers of this phrase very carefully because it is inherently confrontational.
Where should we definitely avoid it?
For example, you should never use it in a collaborative business meeting where you and your colleagues are supposed to be brainstorming solutions. You should never use it in a diplomatic negotiation.
That would just ruin the whole vibe. And I would imagine you definitely shouldn't use it in your personal relationships when someone is being vulnerable.
Absolutely. Never use it when a friend or a romantic partner is coming to you seeking emotional support or trying to express their feelings.
Because it's so dismissive.
Exactly. Because this phrase aggressively shuts down communication and strips the other person of their voice. Using it inappropriately makes you sound incredibly stubborn, arrogant, and completely unwilling to listen to anyone else's perspective. It damages relationships if used improperly.
Okay, let's take a step back and look at the journey of this episode. We've covered some incredibly rich ground today for you to take out into the real world.
We really have.
We started by exploring the deep desire to escape the digital noise and preserve our mental survival by going off the grid. Then we learned how to identify when situations or human histories get actively twisted out of their natural shape and become screwed up.
Which is a great mechanical metaphor.
Right. And finally, we learned how to pull the emergency brake, vocalize punctuation, and firmly close the book on an argument with period, end of story.
And if there is one overarching lesson for you to take away from this episode, it's the reminder that true mastery of English goes far beyond memorizing vocabulary lists.
It's so much deeper than that.
It really is. It is about understanding the social weight, the literal physical history, and the strict conversational boundaries of every single phrase you use. Knowing when to use a phrase and when to hold back is what separates a beginner from a truly fluent speaker.
I think that is the perfect takeaway. And I want to leave you with a final provocative thought to mull over today as you go about your week.
I love these.
Notice how much of our everyday conversational language relies heavily on physical objects and mechanical actions from the past. Today we talked about heavy municipal power lines. We talked about the torque of stripped metal screws. We talked about the physical turning pages of a printed book.
All very physical things.
Exactly. But as our world becomes more and more digital and less tied to physical objects, what completely new technology-based idioms do you think people will be using to describe their emotional lives 50 years from now?
That is a fascinating question to think about.
It really is. Keep listening, keep learning, and keep practicing your English out there in the real world. Catch you next time.